The mansion felt smaller now, though it hadn't changed. Every corridor, every shadowed corner, carried memories of restraint, of promises neither of them could fully keep. He was in the library when she entered, leaning over documents with that familiar aura of control. His gaze lifted, dark and calculating, yet something had shifted, something dangerous and magnetic. "You moved too quickly yesterday," he said, voice low, warning in every syllable. "I understand the consequences," she whispered, voice steadier than she felt. "And I don't care." For a heartbeat, his mask of control faltered. He stepped closer, their space shrinking to an almost unbearable tension. The air between them felt alive, charged, and too intimate for words. "You don't know what that means," he said. "You can't." "I know," she breathed, stepping closer. "It means we stop pretending." Rain began tapping at the windows, a gentle rhythm masking the storm brewing between them. He moved even closer, hand hovering near hers, testing boundaries. She didn't flinch. She wanted him to finally cross the line. But he stopped. Inches apart, his jaw tight, eyes stormy. "One wrong move," he murmured, "and everything you trust me with dies." Her lips curved in a faint, daring smile. "Then let me risk it." His hands found her waist, grounding and protective, but restrained, barely grazing, a promise of more without release. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the world ceased to exist outside that room. She shivered at the closeness, knowing this was only the beginning. Once desire took hold fully, there would be no turning back. The storm had claimed the garden, drenching the hedges and flooding the stone pathways. Lightning illuminated the sky in harsh flashes, revealing the mansion's grandeur in stark contrast to the chaos outside. She wandered cautiously, coat clutched around her, though not from cold. Every footstep brought a thrill of fear and anticipation. She wasn't alone for long. He appeared silently, as though conjured by the storm itself, dark coat dripping, hair damp and windswept. The sight of him, the man she had learned to fear, respect and crave, made her pulse quicken. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice low, warning and raw. "I needed air," she replied, glancing at the lightning that split the sky. "And space from everything." He stepped closer, almost brushing her arm. The brief contact sent a shiver through her. "You're reckless," he murmured. "And yet, I can't stop watching you." She looked up, meeting his gaze for the first time without fear. The intensity in his eyes was undeniable, a storm within a storm. She realized he felt it too, the pull, the tension that had been simmering since the first day they had been alone together. Before words could continue, the sharp sound of tires and shouting broke the moment. Rival forces had come, testing the boundaries of his empire, and by extension hers. He moved instantly, protective, commanding. Her hand found his arm for balance and his grip tightened, not in anger but in possession. "Stay close," he ordered, guiding her through hidden paths toward safety. Even amidst the danger, their proximity was electric. She could feel his heat, the controlled power in every step. Every glance carried warning, desire, and a promise they both knew could ignite at any moment. By the time they returned inside, dripping and shaken, the storm had passed outside, but the storm between them raged on, uncontained, threatening to drown them both in the forbidden desire neither could fully deny. She realized, with both fear and longing, that some glances could be deadly, and some were impossible to resist. Night had settled over the mansion, heavy and suffocating. Shadows stretched across the walls, and the only light came from a single lamp in the study. She found him there, hunched over documents, the weight of the day etched into his posture. She stepped closer, heart hammering. "We can't keep pretending," she said softly. He looked up slowly, eyes dark, unreadable. "Pretending?" "Yes," she whispered, moving closer. "Pretending that nothing has changed between us. That the tension, the longing, doesn't exist." He leaned back, silent for a moment, as though weighing every word. Then, almost impossibly, he admitted it. "I've tried," he said quietly. "I've tried to control myself, to respect the promise I made. But every time you look at me like that, it's impossible." Her breath caught. "Impossible how?" He hesitated, his hands clenching the edge of the desk. "Impossible to ignore. Impossible to protect you without wanting you. Impossible to be the man I swore to be." She reached out, almost touching his arm, but stopped short. "Then don't be that man," she said. "Not for me, not for the promise. I want honesty, even if it's dangerous." For the first time, the walls around him seemed to crumble. He stood, slowly, deliberately, closing the distance between them. His gaze softened, but the storm in his eyes remained. And if I give you honesty? He asked. If I give you what I've held back for so long? Her lips parted slightly. Then I'll take the risk. He hesitated, tension coiling in every muscle, then lowered his face toward hers. Not touching yet, just close enough that her breath mingled with his. One wrong step, he whispered. And everything could be lost. I don't care, she replied, unwavering. I've already risked everything by staying. For a single, suspended moment, time seemed to stop. Their shared longing, restrained for months, hovered dangerously between them, a silent confession louder than words could ever be. And she realized, this was only the beginning. The morning brought no peace. A sealed letter lay on the desk, its black wax emblem sending a chill down her spine. Her father's past had returned to claim them, tangled in debts and alliances she didn't understand. The threats weren't subtle. Someone inside the Mafia had chosen to exploit her, using her as leverage against him. He entered the room silently, eyes scanning every shadow, his posture taut with barely contained anger. They've sent a message, he said, voice low and dangerous. And you're at the center of it. She felt fear coil in her stomach, but beneath it was something more, an unspoken bond of trust. We'll handle it, she whispered. He studied her, the slightest twitch of a smile on his lips betraying his admiration. You're braver than you realize. But bravery meant little when betrayal came from within. Guards had intercepted whispers in the hallways, hints of a conspiracy that threatened to unravel the fragile peace they had built. Every glance at him reminded her that his obsession, his desire, had shifted. He no longer merely protected her. He desired control, dominance, intimacy. She found herself drawn to him, stepping closer as he examined the letter. We can't ignore it, she said, voice trembling, though not from fear. We face it together. He nodded, placing a firm hand at the small of her back. The contact was fleeting, restrained, but it ignited a thrill she couldn't deny. Together, he repeated, tone softening. You're mine in every way that matters. And I will protect you always. The danger lurking within the walls of his empire was real, but the tension between them was just as potent. Threats, betrayal, and desire twisted together like smoke, and she realized, he wasn't just the Mafia boss she feared. He was the man she was beginning to need in ways she couldn't yet name. Outside, the world plotted against them. Inside, their hearts and bodies whispered truths neither could fully admit. And in that whispered space, she understood that survival meant more than safety. It meant surrendering, piece by piece, to the man she could no longer resist. The estate was unusually quiet, the kind of silence that promised nothing but danger lurking just beyond the walls. She was in the drawing room when the alarm sounded, a sudden, urgent warning of intruders. His presence was immediate, protective, commanding. Without thinking, he positioned himself between her and the threat, moving with a precision born of years in power and violence. She clutched the edge of a table, heart racing, watching as he neutralized the danger with effortless skill. In the chaos, his hand brushed against hers, brief, accidental, yet electric. He caught her gaze, eyes dark and stormy. Are you unharmed? He demanded, voice sharp. I'm fine, she whispered, but the truth was in the quickening of her pulse. He stepped closer, chest nearly touching hers, and for a fraction of a second, the restraint vanished. His hand lingered at her waist, firm, claiming but careful. His mouth hovered near her ear. You must understand, he murmured, I will never forgive myself if anything happens to you. The fear, the adrenaline, the proximity, it all collapsed into one undeniable truth: desire. Unable to resist, she pressed slightly against him, matching his intensity. His eyes widened, and for the first time he didn't pull away. Instead, he let himself acknowledge the moment, the tension, the unspoken need that had been building for months. Then, impossibly, he kissed her. Not with reckless abandon, but with controlled, measured intensity. A first claim, bold, protective, intimate, yet tempered by the danger surrounding them. When he finally stepped back, his forehead rested against hers. Breath mingling, hearts racing. This changes nothing, he whispered, but she knew it changed everything. The night left them both trembling, the lines between duty, protection, and desire now irreversibly blurred. She realized then, once desire had been claimed, restraint would never return. The morning light did little to ease the tension. A new associate had arrived at the estate, a young, charming man with a practiced smile. He lingered near her during breakfast, making idle conversation, his eyes a little too attentive. She noticed it but said nothing, unsure why her pulse was already racing. You did. The Mafia boss watched silently, every muscle in his body taut. A flicker of possessiveness darkened his gaze, subtle but unmistakable. When the associate complimented her, his hand brushed the edge of his chair as if restraining a reflexive claim. Later, in the privacy of the library, she dared to ask, "Why are you so tense?" "Because," he said, voice low and dangerous, "he doesn't belong near you." Her lips curved in a faint, teasing smile. "He's harmless. Just polite." His jaw tightened. "Harmless doesn't matter. I won't allow anyone to touch what's mine." The possessiveness in his tone sent a thrill through her, a combination of fear, longing, and something darkly thrilling. She realized with a shiver that he didn't just want to protect her anymore. He wanted complete control in every sense. Later that evening, when they were alone, his hand found hers, not just brushing but holding, claiming. She didn't pull away. "I can't pretend anymore," he admitted, voice rough. "I want you in every way I've denied myself." Her heart raced, understanding the weight of his confession. She had become more than someone to protect. She was the center of his desire, and the thought both frightened and thrilled her. The night left them closer, the tension between them now undeniable. Outside, threats waited. Inside, their attraction simmered, jealous, controlled, and dangerously intoxicating. And she realized that in this marriage, desire was no longer forbidden. It was inevitable. The storm outside had trapped them within the mansion, the heavy rain drumming against the windows like a heartbeat. Every corner of the house seemed to hum with tension, shadows deepening the intimacy between them. They found themselves in the private library, surrounded by books and dim, golden light. The air between them was thick with unspoken desire, every glance and movement charged. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed, watching her as she wandered among the shelves. She could feel his gaze on her skin, on her hair, on the curve of her shoulder, and she shivered. "You shouldn't tempt me," he said, voice low and restrained, though it vibrated with barely controlled need. "I'm not tempting," she whispered, stepping closer. "I'm showing you what's already here." His hands twitched, but he didn't reach for her. Not yet. The restraint in him was palpable, a storm held back by steel and habit. And yet, the air between them crackled with what could not be contained. The rain lashed against the windows, hiding the sound of their racing hearts. She moved a fraction closer, their shoulders brushing, breaths mingling. The proximity was unbearable, and she saw it in his eyes, the struggle between desire and control. Finally, he closed the last distance, pressing his hand to her waist, holding her close without claiming her fully. She leaned into him, feeling the heat of him, the power, the promise. "This is dangerous," he whispered, lips near her ear. "So am I," she replied, her voice bold. "And you've wanted this as much as I have." He froze for a heartbeat, then a low growl escaped him. Desire had won the first round, though carefully, measuredly restrained. Yet she knew, with a thrill and a shiver, that it would not stop here. The storm outside raged on, but the storm between them had begun, uncontainable, forbidden, and inevitable. The mansion felt smaller now, suffocating under the weight of secrets. A message had arrived, coded, urgent, impossible to ignore. Someone inside the Mafia had betrayed them, using her as leverage to test him. The realization struck her like ice. The walls they had built around safety and desire were crumbling from within. He entered the room silently, eyes sharp, every movement controlled yet tense. "You should not have seen this," he said quietly, handing her the intercepted message. "It's dangerous." "I need to know," she replied, voice firm despite the fear curling in her stomach. "If you want me to trust you, I need honesty." He studied her, jaw tight, then let a fleeting vulnerability slip. "This is the danger of loving someone in my world," he admitted. "One mistake, one betrayal, and everything can be lost." They moved through the corridors together, scanning shadows, checking entrances, every step a shared heartbeat. When she brushed against him, he didn't pull away. Instead, he kept her close, protective, possessive, the subtle claim in his hand sending shivers down her spine. Later, alone in the study, he turned to her. "Trust is earned in this world," he said. "But know this, if anything happens to you, I will not forgive myself. And I will not forgive anyone else." She stepped closer, pressing her hand against his chest, feeling the steady strength beneath. "I trust you," she whispered. "Because I know you will protect me, and because I choose to be here with you no matter the danger." His restraint faltered for a moment. His lips brushed the top of her head, a silent promise. "Then we face this together," he said, and she knew it wasn't just the betrayal outside, they would confront the storm between them as well. In the mansion, danger and desire intertwined. Trust had been tested, and desire had been claimed, even as threats loomed. She realized their connection was no longer just survival, it was possession, intimacy, and the fragile beginnings of love amidst chaos. The estate was quiet, but the air between them crackled with tension, an invisible storm neither could ignore. After the betrayal and the near attack, they were alone in the library. The distance that had always existed between them, the careful restraint, the unspoken rules, had evaporated. Every glance, every small movement was charged with desire. He stepped closer, his presence commanding, protective, and impossible to resist. "I can't," he began, voice rough, then broke off, jaw tightening as if he were fighting himself. She reached up, gently touching his chest. "You don't have to fight it anymore," she whispered. "I want this, us." For the first time he allowed himself to close the final space between them. His hands rested firmly on her waist, pulling her toward him, a deliberate, possessive claim. Their lips met, slow at first, testing, measuring, but the heat beneath it was undeniable. Hands tangled, breaths mingled, hearts racing. Desire, long restrained, erupted in every stolen touch, every whispered name. In that moment, the Mafia boss was no longer just protector. He was lover, partner, and equal in passion. "I've wanted you," he admitted between kisses, voice low and urgent. "Since the first day, and I've held back for your sake, for your safety. But not anymore." She pressed against him, answering his claim with equal intensity. "I've wanted you too. I've needed you. And I'm done pretending it doesn't matter." The storm outside mirrored the one inside them, wild, uncontrollable, and consuming. They fell together onto the large armchair, the world beyond the mansion forgotten. In that moment there were no rules, no promises to obey, only the raw, dangerous truth of what they desired, and what they finally allowed themselves to have. By the time they pulled apart, breathless and trembling, she realized something terrifying and exhilarating. Nothing would ever be the same. Their marriage had crossed a line, one from which there was no return. Dawn broke over the estate, pale light spilling across the grounds. The night's chaos had ended, enemies subdued, secrets revealed, betrayals punished. The world outside was momentarily still, but inside, a different storm raged. One of desire, trust, and unspoken promises finally realized. She stood by the window, watching the sun rise, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. When he entered, she felt it immediately, the shift in him, the man who had restrained himself for months now entirely present, entirely hers. "It's over," he said softly, voice low but steady. "And us?" she asked, not daring to breathe too loudly. He approached slowly, every step deliberate, closing the distance that had once been measured by fear and restraint. His hands found her waist, holding her firmly but reverently, as though claiming her in truth rather than obligation. "This marriage," he said, "is ours now. In every way that matters." She smiled, slipping her hands into his. "Then we choose it, together." His forehead rested against hers, breaths mingling, hearts racing. "No more pretenses," he whispered. "No more distance. You are mine as I am yours." The sun illuminated the room, but the real warmth came from their closeness, the intimacy earned through danger, trust, and desire. She realized then that this marriage had never been about confinement, it had been about protection, control, and ultimately, the freedom to choose each other despite the chaos of their world. They walked together through the mansion, hands entwined, no longer bound by fear or obligation, but by trust, passion, and a love forged in fire. Every glance, every touch, was a reminder that some vows are strongest not when sworn in secrecy, but when chosen freely. Outside, the estate returned to quiet, but inside, two hearts beat in unison, claiming their own story. The shadows they had once feared now embraced them, carrying the promise of danger, passion, and a love that would never be tamed. And in that embrace she knew she was finally home. Red Heart.